In June 2025, China's power bank industry was hit by an unprecedented safety crisis. Several influencers reported that power banks are prone to spontaneous combustion.
我操，现在是23号。
It's 2:30 a.m. on the 23rd, and my Romos power bank is charging here. I was in my bedroom when I heard a loud bang. I rushed over and saw it was already on fire. I quickly tried to put it out with water. I can't even imagine what would have happened if I had gone to bed earlier tonight. Look at the whole room.
It's been an hour on the flight, and the power bank caught fire. I'm not sure if it was still charging, but the smoke started spreading. Thanks to the crew's quick instructions, everyone passed their bottled water over, and within 3 to 5 minutes, the fire was put out. I'm still pretty shaken. Our power bank exploded and set our living room on fire.
Yeah, it's the magnetic one, the blue one. I almost ended up lying here.
What brand is this power bank? We should avoid it from now on. The ceiling is all blackened. When I entered the living room, I saw the flame on our 3-part sofa. It had already spread to the ceiling. Luckily, my friend reacted quickly and used a blanket to cover the fire. I rushed to cut off the main power supply. Then, with about 2 or 3 buckets of water, we soaked the sofa until it was completely cool, and that's when we managed to put out the fire. While looking for the cause of the fire, we realized it was the power bank, the magnetic kind that sticks to the back of a phone case. It was charging on the sofa, and after it exploded, it set the sofa on fire. The fire spread so fast, within 30 seconds. It was already that big. Luckily, we caught it in time. We only lost half the sofa and some small property. I really can't imagine what would have happened if we weren't home. On June 16th, Shenzhen-based Chinese tech giant Romos announced a recall of approximately 490,000 power banks, spanning 3 models. The company openly acknowledged that some battery cells had material defects, potentially leading to overheating, and in extreme cases posing a fire risk. Just days later, on June 20th, Anker Innovations joined the recall frenzy, announcing a recall of 7 models totaling 713,000 power banks in China, and 1.2 million units of the PowerCore 10,000 model in the US. The total number of recalled units from both companies exceeds 2 million, marking one of the largest recalls in China's consumer electronics sector in recent years. While the recall itself already left consumers rattled, the ensuing returns process only worsened the crisis. To regain consumer trust, both Anker and Romos offered generous compensation plans. Anker provided full refunds, free replacements, or a shopping voucher worth 50 yuan on top of the original order amount, while Romos promised free exchanges or refunds. However, when consumers attempted to return the faulty products, they found themselves trapped in a frustrating cycle of unable to return and struggled to send their devices back.
You can't take power banks with you. There are strict fines if you're caught. Didn't we have a few incidents this year? Power banks catching fire, right? That's why the rules are stricter now. Anything with a battery, no matter what, isn't allowed. The chances are small, but better safe than sorry. You can't ship them now, not anymore. There's a new notice. If you ship a power bank, you'll get fined $20 for the courier. If they catch it, the fine is $10,000. They've already told you that you can't send it. If you send it anyway and something happens, the sender is also responsible. Joint responsibility.
You can't ship power banks. All those items that are flammable or explosive are banned. Over here, we help ZTO Express, but they've never been allowed to be shipped. Ms. Chen from Sichuan is one of the victims. The Romos power bank she purchased is on the recall list, but after attempting to contact multiple courier companies, she was refused by all of them due to safety risks. She expressed her frustration to the media, saying, "Some say there are issues with the delivery point. Some say power banks with a capacity of 20,000 milliamp hours can't be shipped, and others simply refuse to accept any power banks." Mr. Peng from Guangdong faced a similar situation. Anker Customer Service sent him a fireproof bag and arranged for a courier to pick up the package, but the courier immediately stated that power banks are prohibited items and suggested he cancel the order. According to media investigations, major courier companies such as YTO Express, ZTO Express, Yunda, Shentong, and J&T Express have all explicitly refused to accept lithium battery products. Even SF Express, which previously held the certification for transporting lithium batteries, batteries has suspended the transportation of batteries and portable power products due to frequent recent safety incidents. Currently, only JD Express and China Post still accept power banks for shipment, but with strict conditions. The capacity must not exceed 20,000 milliamp hours, and it is limited to domestic shipping. The reason provided by the courier company is that used power banks pose significant safety risks, as bumps during transportation could potentially cause fires. Furthermore, insurance companies will not cover such damages. These concerns are not without merit. Lithium batteries can indeed catch fire during transportation due to compression, impact, or high temperatures. However, the courier company's blanket refusal policy has left consumers in a tough spot, bearing the risks of holding dangerous goods while also being unable to return them as required by businesses. To address this issue, Anker and Romos have launched a peculiar solution: self-processing. They ask consumers to drain the power from the power banks, soak them in salt water, and then dispose of them, while filming a video for a customer service review. Communicating with them is just leaving messages, sending them texts, but I don't know when they'll reply. I'm here in Henan, and when we tried to return it, SF Express, China Post, and JD Express all clearly said they refused to accept Romos power banks. Then they told me I could dispose of it myself. The method is to first drain the power bank as much as possible, below 25%, then put it in a non-metallic container with water and salt, soak it for 24 hours. The final step is to put the power bank into a metal box and drop it off at a recycling station. Anker's staff emphasized that returning the product is the preferred solution, stating, "We cannot leave the risk in the hands of the users. The self-disposal method is considered a last resort. However, this approach not only involves a complicated process, but has also left many consumers feeling uneasy. Draining the battery, soaking it in salt water, and filming a video, these steps sound more like handling chemical waste rather than a consumer product. More importantly, whether this self-destruction method is truly safe remains unverified by authorities." According to investigations, the root cause of the Romos power bank recall traces back to its upstream battery supplier, Amprius Wuxi Company Limited. Industry sources revealed that Amprius outsourced part of its battery cell production, but the subcontractor secretly changed the raw materials, compromised the battery separator, creating a risk of failure. The separator is supposed to isolate the positive and negative electrodes inside the battery, and if it fails, risks such as short circuits, overheating, or even explosions can occur. What's even more concerning is that it's not a small, unknown company, but one of the leading suppliers in the industry. Following the crisis, multiple Chinese power bank manufacturers, including Anker Innovations and Romos, as well as Green Union Technology and CS Technology, had their 3C certifications suspended or revoked. This crisis did not arise out of nowhere. Anker Innovations reported 19 incidents of fire and explosion in the U.S. market, 11 of which resulted in property damage exceeding $60,000, and 2 incidents caused minor injuries. The situation in China is similarly troubling. Several universities in Beijing issued warnings following Romos power bank explosions, prohibiting students from using related models. These alarming cases have caused consumers to question, are the power banks we carry around mobile charging stations or time bombs? Further reports indicate that this is not the first time the power bank industry has faced safety concerns. In 2020, a batch of substandard power banks produced by a Shenzhen factory caused multiple fire incidents due to battery quality issues. In 2019, a well-known brand's power bank caught fire on a high-speed train, sparking widespread discussion. As early as 2017, the Civil Aviation Administration of China imposed restrictions on carrying lithium battery-powered electronic devices following several incidents of battery fires. These events have repeatedly raised alarms, but they have not prevented the much larger crisis unfolding in 2025. Looking back at history, the root cause of power bank safety issues often points to poor supply chain management and a vicious cycle of cost-cutting. In 2018, the State Administration for Market Regulation released a report stating that nearly 30% of power bank products on the market had potential battery quality risks, with some low-end products even using recycled batteries or substandard materials. However, the industry's pressure to compete led many brands to sacrifice quality in the price war. Price competition not only resulted in reduced raw materials, but also allowed brand owners to lax their oversight of suppliers. Amprius' raw material scandal is a concentrated eruption of this long-standing issue. What's even more thought-provoking is that such crises are not isolated incidents globally. In 2020, Hewlett-Packard recalled 78,000 laptop units due to the risk of battery overheating. In 2016, Samsung's Galaxy Note 7 was globally recalled due to battery defects, which ultimately led to the model's complete discontinuation. These cases highlight that lithium batteries, as the core component of consumer electronics, have long posed a global safety challenge. However, China, as the world's largest producer and consumer market for power banks, has shown a lack of adequate regulation and industry standards. Experts point out that the root cause of this power bank crisis goes far beyond a single supplier's mistake and is a reflection of the entire industry's ecosystem. First off, the cracks in the supply chain management were the spark that ignited this incident. Amprius, a leading battery cell supplier, outsourced production, but made unauthorized changes to raw materials, exposing the alarming lack of oversight by the brands. As industry giants, Anker and Romas were expected to have stringent approval and testing mechanisms in place, yet it became clear that such mechanisms were nothing more than a facade. Compounding the issue, the relentless competition within the industry only fueled the safety risks. In the battle for survival in the power bank market, low prices became the only weapon. In large-capacity power banks, priced at 99 yuan and 79 yuan, flooding live stream platforms were not revolutionary products. Instead, they represented cost-cutting at its extreme, a shrunken version of what should have been. In the heat of bidding wars, upstream battery manufacturers drastically reduced the separator thickness from the standard 20 to 25 micrometers to as low as 15 micrometers. The heat-resistant temperature of the membrane has also quietly dropped from 105 degrees Celsius to 95 degrees Celsius due to cost savings. These small, seemingly insignificant savings, however, turned millions of power banks into ticking time bombs. In their pursuit of lower costs, many companies chose to work with cheap suppliers, even ignoring the poor quality of the battery cells. One industry insider remarked, if the same poor quality cells were paired with a better PCBA design and more sensitive temperature monitoring, the risks could have been minimized. But those improvements cost money, and under the pressure of cutthroat competition, who dares to spend an extra penny? This logic of cutting corners may appear trivial in the short term, but it has become an invisible executioner of the entire industry. When large batches of products are released, it's like planting landmines in a silent warehouse. A single overcharge, a moment of excessive heat, or a bump during transport could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction. In stark contrast, mid to high-end brands that maintain transparency in sourcing materials and keep control of cost with in-house production lines have been squeezed out of the price war. Yet by avoiding the deep cuts, they've managed to narrowly escape the widespread recall that has engulfed the industry. Ironically, the crisis has also highlighted the complex reality behind the Made in China label. As the world's largest producer of consumer electronics, Chinese companies lead in technological innovation and market share, but face challenges in maintaining consistent quality control. The recalls involving Anker and Romas have affected consumer confidence in Chinese brands and have raised questions about the reputation of Made in China. When looking at international comparisons, the disparity in lithium battery quality is nothing short of striking. In the United States, the FAA has long mandated that portable power banks can only be carried on board with their ports covered. Once a recall is issued, the CPCS can issue a nationwide alert and track enforcement within 72 hours. The EU's CE system operates on a dual-track approach of market access first, market inspection later, meaning that if companies conceal defects, they will face lawsuits and hefty fines across multiple countries. In contrast, while China's 3C certification has high entry barriers, it lacks long-term monitoring of products already on the market. Recalls in China largely depend on brand awareness and public pressure. When the interests of companies and regulators are so intertwined that they're impossible to untangle, consumers can only hope that they're not the next victim. Chinese experts on domestic issues have pointed out that the power bank crisis also reflects deeper systemic challenges. The Chinese Communist Party's emphasis on strict regulation and high-quality development often faces practical limitations. The 3C certification, which serves as a safety pass for Chinese electronics, is meant to be the last line of defense for consumer rights, but proved insufficient at a critical moment. The problematic battery cells from Amprius were able to enter the market without hindrance, highlighting areas where regulatory bodies could improve on certification and oversight. Following the crisis, the regulatory authorities did not immediately coordinate with companies and the courier industry to address the issue, leaving consumers in a situation where returns were difficult. The facade-style regulatory approach is nothing new in China. From food safety to pharmaceutical quality, and now consumer electronics, similar crises are all too common. Each time an incident occurs, the government quickly issues emergency measures, such as civil aviation restrictions, but these measures often only address symptoms rather than the root causes. which are often supply chain chaos and industry infighting. Meanwhile, consumers bear the brunt of the regulatory failures, facing additional risks and troubles. It's also noteworthy that the Chinese Communist Party's propaganda efforts often focus on presenting a calm and controlled narrative during crises. State media reports on the power bank crisis have largely emphasized the company's voluntary recalls and responsible actions, while rarely highlighting regulatory gaps and difficulties faced by consumers. This selective narrative helps maintain focus on the positive aspects of the response, while not fully addressing the broader issues at hand, which may limit the public's understanding of the complete situation.